Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and one of our HFA webinars. I'm Mark Schumacher. I'm the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. And as always, I'm thrilled to have you. And we have yet another high interest topic today. And we're really talking about merchandising in your store, particularly in this environment right now. And we've got a great panel. But before we get there, I want to tell you a couple of things, a little bit of housekeeping here. To the right side of your screen, you're going to notice that there is an area where you can give us any questions that you have in the chat area. Just type a message in. We'll do our best to get to those questions, so please do that. Secondly, myhfa.org, you can find all the webinars in our library. So anything, even today's, will be there. It'll be on demand, so that if there are things that you hear today that you want to review or you want to share it with someone, you can do that at myhfa.org. So without further ado, however, I want to make sure that I introduce our panel. We've got a great one today. Joining us, we have Rich Kaiser and Georgianne Bender, partners in Kaiser and Bender, even though they are separated today. Don't worry, there's some weather issues, and so they're in different locations. There's not been a falling out. We just want to point that out. They are, I love this, they are consumer anthropologists. They're fantastic. They call their company Retail Adventure for a reason, and we're going to talk more about that and get more into their head as well. Also joining us is Connie Post. Connie, she's got two hats that she wears now. She not only is the CEO and owner of Connie Post International Affordable Design Solutions, but she also opened up a retail store. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And Kim Cornish is joining us. Kim's the Director of Visual Merchandising and Design for 915 South. If you are not familiar with them, that's a 21-store Ashley franchise that is in the Georgia, Carolinas area. As a matter of fact, they've got stores here in Greensboro near where I am. So first of all, everybody, thank you for taking the time out to be with us here today. I'm going to throw this one out here, and I'm just going to pick Georgianne first. Georgianne, I'm going to round robin this first question because so many of the questions that came in from people that are joining us today are questions that surround this environment that we've been in. Low amount of new product, maybe high inventory, but low amount of diversified product. Give us an idea just how challenging from where you sit it is today to really merchandise a store when you know that you just don't have the reliable flow of merchandise coming in that we might have in the past. But give some of the nuances as to what today, those challenges that you're seeing today that retailers have to try to surmount.
You know, it's really interesting. We just had a really great January, even though we can't get merchandise into stores. That's a big problem, Mark, across the board. And what we're seeing in stores, we're seeing Nordstrom stores that are just pushing merchandise back so they have these big roped off dance floors. I hate that. We're seeing other stores where they are taking sections of the stores and they're setting up tables so that they can put their online e-commerce sales there. You know, in a situation like that, when you're low on merchandise, that's when you really need to start setting up lifestyle displays, use the furniture that you have, add the accessories, set up vignettes. There are ways to take a sales floor and make it look like it's full, even when it's not. And that has been the challenge for the last, I want to say 6 to 8 months, and will be for a while.
Can I interject something there too,
Please
George?
do, Rich. I was just gonna throw it to you anyway.
You know, one of the things that we really pick up in interviews with customers is they've had so many months of restrictive shopping, and the stores kind of going off and doing as much as they could on the curb, driving to the house. The critical issue here, I think, and George, you touched it, is that when I go into that store that I used to go into, and now I'm expecting not so much out of it because of the COVID, and it's been like that, that when I walk in, I see exactly, George, what you were talking about. I see beautiful stands of product that, you know, are shouting, we're cool, we're neat, come on in. This is not the store you had before. And that kind of a mantra for everybody every day to make the store flow like it's alive is the key for, I think, that retail store to survive in an environment that is still tough, and it's going to probably stay tough for quite some time.
We've been talking about the in-store experience for 100 years, but right now in retail, the experience that I have in your store is literally more important than the product that you sell.
Yeah.
because everybody sells the same merchandise or similar merchandise, but I can't get it from you, from anybody else the way I can get it from you. So it's really a time right now to up your store's in-store personality.
Well, let me let's kind of as I pass this around a little bit, let's expound on some of these things you're talking about. Connie, talk a little bit about the challenges for not just you as a designer, but for retailers to keep it fresh when you don't necessarily have the product turnover that you've been used to. So talk a little bit about that challenge, because this is something we see just in all these questions that have come in. So many people are surrounding that.
Well, I would first address it that to do something different. And what are you doing different? Those are key questions to ask anyone. Do something different. That means mix it up. Most people are married to a basic departmentalized format, and have their dinettes in one section, their upholstery, but the point is that if in fact they mixed it up and brought the casual dining and married it into some of the upholstery, and there's a natural addition of sales just because people are like open formats, then if you've not done that in the past, then just simply by marrying dining with your upholstery groups, you make the store feel different, look different. Seasonal, you can't go into a Pottery Barn without not knowing what the season is. You're coming up on spring, and I promise you that when you go in, it's going to be full of spring things, daffodils, yellows, and the tables are going to be set. There's things to do. You can go to Target if you're not into dishes and buy dishes and placemats and seasonal things to freshen it up, that it feels like you are on trend with what's going on seasonally. But the biggest issue is make it look different. Move your departments around. Have lifestyle settings, just as Georgia said. We have to do things different in a way that entices the customer and gets them excited. And it is the time to repaint. And the seasonal colors that are important, but most importantly, just being on trend with colors. Pantone and what's the other one? Sherwin-Williams. Sherwin-Williams color of the year is moss, something moss green. Moss green. That paint color should be in your store. And also Pantone's color, Very Perry. It's a lavender violet color. That color should be on a wall somewhere so that you're looking exciting and that you can talk about it. Did you know that's Pantone's colors of the year? Did you know that this was Sherwin-Williams color? These colors need to be done. And it's not like you have to paint a whole wall. You can color block. Take a 10-foot section, just the size of the sofa, and paint it these fashion colors to make your store seem different in your merchandising moves.
Let's you unpacked a lot there, which I'm going to get around to all of that, because it's because you've hit a lot. You've hit a lot of important points and questions here, and we will talk about really how merchandising can directly impact sales. But I want to bring Kim in, because Kim, so we've had these three great minds here talk about this, all these incredible theoretic things, and you're the one who's responsible for now taking these types of things and spelling that out over 21 different stores. So talk a little bit about how you have had to try to deal with and meet the challenge of this COVID impacted merchandising world.
It has been quite a couple years. I will say all of our stores are very large. I think our smallest store is right around 20,000 square feet, and it goes up to 45,000 square feet. And one of the things we went into this whole period committed to as a company was making sure our store stayed full. So when there were lots of people selling off the floor, which is, every customer's dream, we didn't do that. We held tight. You had to, or for long it would look like you were no longer staying in business. And you want to make sure that the consumers that are coming in continue to have confidence that you will be there the long term. So that was something that was very important to us. So we wanted to stay full. And we've had ebbs and flows where upholstery was our struggle to get. Right now, I would say upholstery is building up. Case goods, I can see, are going to be a little bit more of a challenge for us. So we're going into that with a strategy. We are a multi-lifestyle store. So we have kind of mini stores within our store, which is really great from a consumer perspective. But with COVID, it's, there's times where I have felt some lifestyles were maybe more impacted than others. So what we've done is we've looked at an opportunity to maybe expand on some of the lifestyles that we haven't had before, or categories. So for example, outdoor, we've typically done that as a seasonal category. We're going to actually dedicate, we're in the Southeast, so for us, it makes sense to just expand that category and give it a permanent position until we don't need it anymore. And at that point, we may have enough sales on it to justify keeping it. So I think you have to look at categories you haven't always delved into and the ones that are most readily available. And then, of course, I echo, a lot of the things that Connie said as well, just kind of keeping it fresh. And we've focused really heavily on the visual experience because, to your point, if somebody's ventured outside, they've put on their mask, they've put on clothes, taken off their pajamas, and they've unearthed themselves from their couch, they're dedicated to hopefully finding something, but they're dedicated to finding a new experience that they want to take home with them. So we definitely have to inspire that with our displays. And again, echoing what they've said, it's always looking for ways to refresh. Our front entry experience right now, we went pretty dramatic. When COVID hit, I went as white and clean as I could make it because I thought that was really important for people to feel that. Then we had basically a restoration hardware type look come into the store, and so we went the complete opposite and went with a black fox wall in the entry. It's a darker color. It's a color that maybe is a little bit more dramatic than someone would expect coming into one of our stores, but that's what made it so impactful. We're not ready to repaint that because it was a pretty big expense just a few months ago. So we're going to take what we have and we're going to kind of flip it on its ear and do some things with texture and contrast more than a color change there to provide that new feel.
Wow. Okay, I love that. I mean, again, so much there that's critically important. So you're just real quickly before I move on, Kim, what's your basically your timeline of turning over that as people come in the front? How often can I expect that to change if I'm in your store regularly?
There will be some degree of change 4 times a year. I used to go whole hog, major changes, and I have determined, just because of the scale of what we are and what that does to the balance of the store, I'll usually do a complete change twice a year and then a modest change in between. So we may change out some of the product. We may just even change some of the positioning to a degree.
Okay.
We also
major changes 4 times a year, but you're tweaking. It sounds like you're tweaking pretty constantly, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Mark, I'd like to address that for just a second because I have spoken about the most valuable square footage on your floor is your entry. That first 3,000 to 5,000 square feet that the guest experiences. If you don't do anything else, that's where your attention to detail has to be done, and that's where your change needs to be. Now, if you're a small retailer with only 15,000 square feet, then maybe it's the first 1,000 square feet that needs to be addressed on a calendar basis, that you are keeping it fresh, putting fashion colors, changing up the floor, putting a new chandelier in. Because it is the first impression of your brand, and then it is also the last impression visually of your brand.
Good
Yeah,
point.
and we would, if I can add to that, we would take it even a step further and say that the first thing a customer sees when they walk into the store, the first grouping, we call that a speed bump, because it acts the same way as speed bump in the parking lot. It slows customers down. And
Right.
Rich and I spend a lot of time watching people in stores and tracking how much time they spend in different places and how quickly they breathe in the front door. They're not spending any more than 10 to 20 seconds looking at your store when they first come in. So it's almost like, how Disney World and Disneyland shoves a castle right in front of you. That first display has to be like your castle, has to be important. So even if you're leaving it there for a month or six weeks, change the pillows, change the lamps, change accessories. So it looks different when I come back as a repeat customer.
Let me expand on that too, because I love that Disney castle example. Is that, if you go to Disneyland, go sometime and watch people coming in, because when they walk in from that overhead for the train, they walk in they're in that circular area, and the first thing they say is the castle. And everybody goes, oh, wow. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the Queen's Castle. How cool is that? And you see the energy start to boil up. This is going to be a great place. Well, we
Queens
can't have a castle all the time in a retail store, but we can have the mentality of what is our castle when they come in. I think it's really neat to have a real hit of adrenaline for a customer to say, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. And
And I
then
think
the rest of it, you know, it's your play.
Well, Rich, I think the thing that I thought that Connie said was great too is remember, it's not just the first impression, it's also the last impression. So
Exactly.
that adds a little something different. I just want to point something out, by the way. And I knew this was going to be the case with the personalities on this call, is that I think I've asked one question and we're 15 minutes in. You guys, it's like set it and forget it. But you just reminded me of one of my favorite jokes. Do you know how many designers it takes to change a light bulb? Just one, but they keep changing it and changing it and changing it. Anyway, nobody's going to deny that on this call. Let me ask you just real quick before we get out of that before we get out of the front entrance conversation, because the people watching this, the retailers watching this, want some specifics. So, what is the best way then to create? And this was one of the questions: how to create that wow experience coming in the door? And that's what we're talking about. And Georgianne, you talked about that experiential piece. So what's some of the ways to create that people here can use and take away from this webinar?
You know,
Well, the wow factor is always based on the way something makes you feel. It could be balls of light. In the Cardi stores in New England, I put multiple balls of light when you first come in that you just go, wow, I haven't seen anything like that. Or just the fashion colors on the wall in a way that the customer is excited about it. But it can also be simply just the display itself, that it's so full, so complete, so interesting that the customer just has to stand there for a moment and treat it differently.
I also think that you can't ignore the power of scent. I think that's very important.
Absolutely, I agree 100, Kim. 100%.
We are thrilled with our scent air machine. We have a scent air machine at the very front entrance of our stores. Our front entrances are about 1,500-ish square feet, roundabout. And one machine more than covers that amount of space. We have a signature scent that we put in our front entries. We do change it on during the holidays for fall and Christmas. Otherwise, we have a signature scent. And the power of scent is just, it just transforms people's experience when they come into the store. Especially if you have an older store too. I mean, we lose the new store scent, and there's just something so wonderful and fresh about a great clean smell. So we have one there, and then we also have one in our bedding department. So they're quite a distance away from each other, but what we have found is that impression when you first walk in, it stays with you as they carry through the store, even though the scent machine's not there. It's there in their senses and in their head, and then it gets reactivated when they enter our bedding department, and there's a scent back there that also coincides with sleep and rest and that kind of thing. But I just can't say enough about what that does for it.
Kim, that's a great takeaway. Georgianne, go ahead.
Scent is the one thing that brings back memories. It's everything that we remember somehow was connected to a fragrance. So when you have a key fragrance like you have, Kim, that's just for your stores, every time I smell that, I'm going to remember your store. But going back to Disney, they pump in vanilla because it smells like chocolate chip cookies, and you think you're with your mom. But I want to go back to the front of the store again. I mean, you have to really know your customers and understand what your customers are going through right now. We're coming out of this pandemic, taking a deep breath. Hopefully, Omicron is going away, and maybe we're going to get to start going out without masks again and start to leave our houses. But for a long time, to use Faith Popcorn's word, forever we were cocooning, and people were worried about, where am I going to be doing Zoom calls? Do I need a home office? Are we comfortable? Where am I going to get the Afghans and the pillows and the accessories and what kind of lighting? And people walked into stores and they were looking for that. What does this store offer me that I can take home to my house right now to make it feel even more like a home, because I can't leave it? So you have to look at consumers and realize, okay, well, we've been locked in for so long, we got loose. They locked us back in again. And now we're starting to come out. What do people want to see that you sell in your store that you can put right up front? You know, I might not be ready to do a French country entire living room, but I might be able to do pieces of that right now.
Okay, fabulous. And you know, it's interesting that the questions coming in are not only about the wow coming in, but let me throw this one out there. I wasn't planning to get to this yet, but another question just came in. So we know that you need to reflect your brand, not only when people walk in the store,
Right.
but when they find you online, because we know they're starting online first. So before I go any further, are there any thoughts that you have, even though I know that your most of your expertise is really talking about that merchandising coming into the store? Is there a way to make sure that you're matching up that what you're seeing online, you're seeing in the store? And I'm seeing a bunch of people nod. Kim, I'll start with you.
That's really been my biggest focus for the last few years, is just really making sure that the expectation when they come in is what they've seen online. I mean, I think everybody starts there now. That's just where we're automatically starting. And I don't want to do anything to the group to necessarily blow up the dream of what they thought that would be, right? So whenever we bring it in, we really do try to match with what we call associations, so lamps, rugs, tables, that sort of thing, to match back to our website as much as possible. We do adhere to lifestyles. So, and in the case of our company, if Ashley says this is vintage casual, then we're going to make sure we have that land in the vintage casual lifestyle, so that it's understandable to the consumer that has come into the store being prompted online to look at it. Now, a lot of what we carry, and I think a lot of what a lot of stores carry, could really morph themselves with how you treat it, right? You could dress it with all kinds of different accessories and take upholstery groups, for example, a lot of different directions, especially since everybody loves neutral sofas, and that seems to be what is predominant in the marketplace. But we really do want to try to adhere to that. So as far as my team goes, we have a playbook, and everybody knows it's kind of their Bible. And when they have said group, we order it in with the items that they need to show it with. And we have this living document that we can refer to if there's any questions, and they can see what goes with each of those groups. And so whether you're in our store in Tallahassee, Florida, or you're in Greensboro, that group is going to be associated the same way. But if you go to our Pensacola store, it's going to be associated as well, but they may take a little bit of a different twist on maybe the wall art. Maybe that's a little bit more of a coastal looking wall art to be relevant to the market that it's sitting in.
But thematically, you tie to what you're putting out online.
That's right.
So for the rest of you on the call, so you want to make sure, obviously, that you're not going to underwhelm people when they get there. You don't want to present such an incredibly merchandise, beautiful approach online, and then have people come in, and then I like to refer to that as the dull thud. Correct? I mean, is this an important piece to marry these things?
This is a problem with retailers that are smaller, because they have a tendency to rely on stock photography that comes from manufacturer to put online. And so then what happens is the consumer comes in and there's a disconnect. They'll say, I want to see the sofa that was online. They'll come and they'll look at it and they'll say, well, that's not the same one. Well, it doesn't look like the same one because it's not dolled up, it's not decorated, there isn't a nice rug, there aren't pillows, there's not everything to make it special. And that's hard because small retailers do not necessarily put much money into decor. Ashley does, and I love the fact that they commit to decor. And what Kim just said is exactly right. She has a playbook for consistency, but there is this disconnect in the industry when we rely on, and that's 80%, because I don't even know that there's 20% of the retailers that can shoot their own photography. And so you come in and it's a disconnect. It doesn't feel the same. So it's important. Accessories are important.
Yeah.
Decor, rugs.
So Mark, Rich and I have a program, we call it Bricks and Clicks, how to retail with a foot in both worlds. And we've done a lot of research on this. Right now we have omni consumers, and omni consumers are looking at your website, your social media, your e-commerce sites, if you have one that's separate from your website, and they're looking at your store, and they all need to match. So, you can have a website made in any number of places, but the days of the static picture that stays up there, and then I'm looking at the little thumbprint to try and figure out what the couch looks like, they're gone. They need to be light, they need to be bright, they need to be airy, they need big pictures of product, they need product that's merchandised. And like if you look at a Pottery Barn website, and I only say that because you brought it up, Connie, earlier, and I looked at Pottery Barn earlier this week. You go to their website and there's a wonderful picture on the front cover, and you click at it. Whatever you click on takes you to a separate section that talks about that product. And it doesn't matter today if you are an independent retailer and you have a 2,000 square foot store, or you're as big as Kim's store is, you have to have that. And then take it further. Are you live streaming on Facebook Live? Are you doing Instagram and Instagram Reels? Are you taking people inside your store? It's people just, a website by itself, a Facebook by itself, an Instagram and a store by itself today are fine, but they need to be connected for today's consumer.
I love what you just said, because then you're basically saying that what all that attention you have put, as we've talked about, that wow experience in the front of the store, can be captured and reflected on your social channels. I mean, that's an easy way to do that, right? Go ahead, Rich.
We have a great story about that we worked with a young lady in Moline, Illinois, that had a wonderful gift shop, sold clothing and a lot of things. She said, well, I can remember the last day we relayed the entire store, and the last day she goes, now what do I have to do? And I said, now what you have to do is the most fun part, but you're going to think it's the most worst. Do you have a video camera? She goes, yes, I do. I said, let's go out on the floor and take us in to one of the areas you love and talk to us about it, and do it yourself. We'll hold the camera and you talk to the camera. Well, anyway, she said, I can't do that. And everybody says that.
Right.
But about 6 months later, she continually did it. I will never forget, she had an apron that would not stain, or a tablecloth that would not stain. And she sat there and said, on the third video, and she goes, the problem with wine is when you spill it, and she poured it, she goes, and it stains everything. But then she demonstrated how this thing didn't stain the wine. I don't know how she did it, but anyway, but she did such a great job. Customers from miles around were coming. And what is the award she got for promotion of the store?
A Main Street Award from Forbes for social media. You know what? And the challenge with taking photographs now, we write for a magazine and we have to send them photographs. I use my iPhone. It takes good photographs, and I just upgraded to 13, and it takes really good photographs.
Yep.
And
I mean,
good video.
it's funny you said that, because I think that we've also gotten to a point where people are so used to seeing videos that friends and family make that you don't have to be rich. To your point, you don't have to be an expert. And you made a really great point. I have a background in broadcast for a long time. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And you just proved the point that you just challenged this person, and in short order, here she is now. She's creating and really going there. I got to just mention, by the way, I like to do this a few times during these webinars, but we've gotten almost halfway here. And for people that have jumped on, I see we've added some folks here. I got to just mention that we are talking to Rich Kaiser and Georgianne Bender of Kaiser and Bender Retail Adventure. They are, and I love this, they are generational diversity experts, consumer trends experts, marketing, promotion, whole 9 yards. Connie Post is here. She's a phenomenal designer, and she has her own store now as well, so she wears both hats. And Kim Cornish is director of visual merchandising and design for 915 South, and that is a 21 store Ashley franchisee. So let me get to a couple more of these questions, because you guys are just killing it here. So everybody wants to know, I put all this into these displays, all this time, all this money. Can you definitively say to this audience that there are ways that this attention to merchandising does reflect on the bottom line and it can impact sales? And I'm going to start with our retailer first. Kim, is that true? I mean, is it just anecdotal at this point? People really want to know if the money I'm spending on that, does it translate into dollars?
You know, there's no way that it doesn't. I think it is a challenge sometimes to put a number on it, right? I mean, even within our own company, I think there's always a challenge to quantify it. Like, where do you get the number? And you can look at, you know, pieces per ticket. You can look at lots of different things to see if you're inspiring adding on sales. And so that's one way you can quantify it for sure. But, you know, I will say that as far as our company goes, we've been incredibly dedicated to it, even at times where it was probably not as affordable to do it, meaning having, you know, dedicated visuals to our stores. We never, even in the economic downturn, we never stopped that emphasis, because I think that customer experience has always been the most important thing. It's a fashion business. If we let go of that, and we just rely on value or availability, you're going to lose a large portion of your customers. There's not really a reason for them to come in. And I think when we have acquired some stores over the years that maybe did not have as much of an emphasis on it, we came in, we merchandised it how our team likes our stores merchandised, we can see the uptick pretty significantly. So there's no question that it's impactful, and we're growing exponentially, I think, not in large part, but I think in a great part because of that. I just think we continue to push ourselves to constantly be better, to look better, to have a better experience for that customer. And I think customers now are way savvier than they were 10 years ago because of all of the things we've talked about, all the exposure through Pinterest. And I mean, you know, sometimes they come in and sometimes I wonder if they know more about it than some of our own salespeople as far as style and how to put things together and all of that. They really are savvy, and they want to come in and be inspired and surprised by their shopping experience. And I think because of that, we have to continually improve our displays and our interactions with our customers from our salespeople and so forth.
Can I ask a question of everyone who's watching this? I can't see your hands, but have you ever gone into a Target store to buy a bottle of Windex and you walked out spending at least $100? Absolutely. Okay, so Rich and I call that the Target syndrome. Look, I understand merchandising. I'm a store designer. I'm a visual merchandiser. I'm the person who comes into your store and straightens your displays. And if I can walk into a store, as I frequently do, if I can walk into a furniture store and see something that I want for my house because you have it on display and you can get me to spend $300 on a dish of pears, which I did 2 weeks ago with Rich, he was shaking his head at me, what's wrong with you? If you can get somebody like me to spend the money, it's like Kim said, it's working.
Well,
I've never had a renovation that we didn't. I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead. You go first.
I just got to tell you that store was marvelous because everywhere we looked, they had an additional item stacked against you. So if they looked, George looked at this container of this bowl, and it was expensive. It's because I just have to have this. Well, they had taken, what were they, balls or something, ornaments, and there were like 18 of them. And we're walking, and I said, well, you got to get rid of all this. And she goes, I'm buying it all. And she would have never have bought that. And I think that was like about $170 hit. And look at her, she's giving a thumbs up. So, but you know what?
No,
and it was about $180. And I talked to the guy behind the counter, and he said, well, it was well over 75% markup based on cost. He said, we don't Keystone anything. It's Keystone Plus. And wow. He had a big plus on that one. But that's what you can do. You dream it and sell it. That's it.
Good,
walk to the store and dream it.
I haven't had a store renovation in the history of my 30-year career that if it were a renovation, that it wasn't a 10 to 20% uptick in business instantly. And I realized by the end of the year it was consistent. And that's a huge thing for people to think about. The bar has been raised. Yes. As far as furniture retail is concerned. Just think about going into a Wendy's or a Taco Bell, for heaven's sake. they have upgraded all their stores. They've put modern floors in. They have modern graphics. The walls are, McDonald's does a wonderful job. They have great big drum shades, modern drum shades for lighting. And
Very good.
when you come into, and that's buying a 99-cent hamburger or $2 at best. And then you come into a furniture store and you're looking at spending $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $10,000. And we are lost in the 70s, or we're lost in the 90s. We haven't spent any time on rejuvenating our brand through renovation. And it doesn't always have to be all of it at once, but the bottom line is the bar's been raised. And just like Kim said, the customers are savvy, they're online, everybody gets a Pottery Barn catalog. My goodness, that alone, that lookbook alone raised the bar on presentation.
The
I think there's something to be said too when you're talking about renovation, because we're constantly renovating, because we definitely believe that. But one thing I noticed, we were so emphasizing our interior renovations. We pretty much renovated, I think, every one of our stores with the exception of 2 that are online for this year. But one thing I noticed was we really didn't do anything to the exterior, right? So there's people that maybe aren't your customers that are driving up and down the road, don't have a clue what you've invested on your interior. So I would suggest that if you do something on the inside, even if it's something small on the outside, you know, it could be just a paint change. We talked about that. It could be new flowers in a pots that are out front, or something to say, hey, stop, something's changed here, something's new, and get them to slow down.
I really want to address that too.
I want to do a quick round robin here because I want to get more granular in what you guys just talked about. I'll start with Georgianne and just quick, we can pass it around here. So without having to break the budget, without, you know, we've got small, mid-sized, large retailers, everybody, without having to break the budget and necessarily do a full renovation, what are the simplest and cost-effective ways to make these kind of changes that are noticeable and that'll push the needle? What are those things that can be done more on a shoestring than on a capital budget?
Okay, so the thing that Rich and I focus on are makeovers. So really focus when the customer walks in on that first vignette that the customer sees. Make sure it's well lit. Make sure that the passageways around it lead me to someplace else in the store. We always say that you should have a blueprint of your store with a piece of vellum over it so you can move things around on the floor to make sure that you are moving people throughout the store, that they're not going and they're hitting walls and they're not at a dead end. So that's one thing. And to go back to that first vignette, you're setting the precedent for what I'm going to find the entire time I'm in the store. So even if you don't change the actual furniture, change the accessories, 2 things happen. And we recommend you do it once a week. 2 things happen. First of all, you get repeat customers. They think, boy, this store has a whole lot of merchandise. The second thing that happens is that you're going to get salespeople who work in the store who are going to go, when did we get that?
Yeah.
And the owner, the manager's going, I don't know, we've had it for 6 months, but it was 3 feet inside the door. I used to have a store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago that I ran, and I had the same people that came in the morning, they came in at lunchtime, and they came in at night before they went to the train. And I changed my front vignette 3 times a day. And those women thought I had more money than Macy's around the corner. Okay. So it's that first impression is critically important because it sets what happens the rest of the time in the store.
Okay, so I'm hearing keep those accessories moving, and it also doesn't sound like you're saying you got to buy new ones each week. You're just saying move them around. You might have something that's yeah. Okay, gotcha.
You're managing your lakefront property is what you're doing.
All right, Connie, help out the smaller retailers here. How can you do these things?
I'm going to tell you that the exterior of your store represents over 57% of your marketing brand strategy. And there again is also where sometimes there's a disconnect from what people see online. And then when they get to the store and the impression of the exterior of the store, whether they want to even shop there or not, I have personally turned around and driven away from stores because they did not match what I thought on the billboard signage and going to a location. There was a disconnect. So if 57% of your marketing, over 57% of your marketing brand strategy is based on the exterior, then that has to be addressed on a minimum of a 5-year timeline. Now, 5 years is stretching it, but the cheapest thing that people can do is paint the store. Just change the color. Change it from whatever it is. And if you're telling me, well, we have red brick and, we don't want to paint brick. Well, I'm going to tell you red brick's dated and you need to paint the red brick. Paint it blue, paint it aqua, paint whatever your market is. If you're on the seaside and in Florida, you can get away with some of those colors, but everything, just paint it so people know what's going on. Change the awnings, change the landscaping, just like Kim said, the flowers outside, whatever. That first and last impression of the exterior is your brand. And it's got to be addressed. And I can't tell you how many retailers, small and large, that I come in and it's not being addressed. And of course, I'm being brought in to deal with it for them. But it doesn't have to be something to break the bank. Paint, 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 fresh awnings.
Okay. Rich, do you have a couple of comments? I think I heard paint. So.
I do. Number one is that we always talk about, color. You got to change your color. Things have got to change. If you've got an old green wall in that store, everybody's seen it before. It's like an albatross or a big wall of snow that's going to fall over on them, and that's got to go away. That's an important thing to do. I agree that you have to have fixtures that look like fixtures that were made at least in the last 10 years. Don't do anything other than something that will work for you to sell the product. I guess that those are the kind of like the snap. That's the thing you ought to do. I've listened now to 3 or 4 comments about windows, and I have to tell you that what we've discovered vinyl cling that goes into windows that from the outside look like spectacular a store inside. And you can do that by just taking a picture and having it done. And we put a lot of the associates who are working in the stores, we'll put them in the cling if in fact they say it's okay. What it is, it's a sunscreen, so it keeps the sun from coming in and burning everything. But when you're outside looking at it, it is a beautiful, beautiful view or vista of what you have in the store. Can be a set, or it can be an entire store picture.
That's really good if you have windows that don't lend themselves to setting a display.
Right. Sure. If you, because the windows could be your friend. The windows could actually be something that you merchandise too.
Tell the story.
Kim, before we get past that, since you have to deal with this as well. So what are those least expensive things that can make the most difference in keeping things fresh that'll help other retailers that are watching this webinar?
I'm going to say really look at your lighting. I know when I walk in some of stores that we've acquired and so forth and so on, even stores I'm just shopping in, that tends to be the first thing we change. Usually there's high bays, fluorescents. You must kill any fluorescent light that's in your store. It makes me angry. Fluorescent lighting makes me, but I would say definitely LEDs. It's going to be more cost effective, but it's going to give a truer color to your furniture. And we incorporate high bays because we are so large. But I would definitely say, spotlights, I just think are very impactful. You want to make sure you have the right, lumens and that your spread is just right and so forth. We have one lamp we use in all of our stores because it is we've tried everything out there and that seemed to be the best one for us. And we get a lot of response to that. But I just think lighting is just key. You can do all the most beautiful displays. You can spend so much money on all of the accessories you want, but if the lighting is not right, you're just not getting your money's worth. So I would start there because honestly, you literally shed light on the situation and you may say, hey, we don't really need a whole lot more than this. Let's put some light on it, see where our real weaknesses are.
Yeah, fluorescents just don't have any warmth, and when you come in, let's put it this way: when was the last time you walked in anybody's house, and in their house they had fluorescent lights all over the place? They just don't. So that warmth.
I got to make an important point because every store that listens to this or watches this can use this. Kim, you hit a home run on the lighting. if older customers are coming into the store now, a 65, 60, 65, and they need 3 times the amount of light that they did when they were younger. Now, if you have the lumens measured from the power company in your store and you say, look, we want to make sure this is right for an older car. If it's okay for an older person, it's going to be okay for a younger person at the same time. But take care of the way you light the store. It's critical. And another thing on this thing about being able to see, never, never, never cast shadows. You don't set your so many people set fixtures so they cast shadows on the fixture on either side. But the last thing I want to tell you about the site is people that are getting older wear reading glasses. There's a reason they can't read without them. And so many signs today are put up in products on stores that a person 65 years old who's got this, whatever I have, and I have it, you can't read it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't give you a call on it. I even, what?
It starts at age 40.
Whatever. It's been a long time, George. But you know what?
Oh, man.
And it's over. So we push the retailers that we redo. We push them on a lot of these things. Kim, the lighting is always the one that I look and say, man, we got to take care of that, because it's really the one daughter that never has a date in the store. Nobody pays attention
But
to it.
honestly, it has one of the biggest impacts. And I was just going to say, you're talking about money saving. We have found recently that there are some ways to do that pretty inexpensively. If you have just, inset lighting or something, you don't have track lighting and it's fluorescent, you can do conversion kits. There's LED conversion kits that are very inexpensive. Even within the restroom of your store, don't forget those lights too, because they're important as well. But that's a really inexpensive way to get in there and get that LED swapped out. We're actually fixing to redo some fluorescent high bays that we have in our Spanish Fort store, and we are thankfully not going to have to change positions of anything. We're literally just going to change the fixture, and it's going to save us a ton of money because we're not going to be going up and down on a lift or having to maintain those. The lighting is going to be so much better, and so it is worth it to us to invest in that for sure. And certainly the LED spotlights, I mean, that goes without saying.
While we're on lighting, just one more quick trick that I use. When people are coming from outside in, there's a transition for their eyes because it's much brighter on the outside. I always put more light in the entry. I put more lighting so that it's brighter and it's less of a shock to your eyes and a transition from outside in the area. And then your eyes will adjust as you go around. But always, always, always that front area, the entry, much brighter.
And the other thing too, if you're going to invest the time and money into paint and all these other things, and your lighting is not good, then I'm not as the customer, I'm not getting the full effect of these beautiful colors and how the merchandise connects to it. I mean, the lighting, Rich, I think you hit it on the head. There may be no more important thing, because that's what absolutely is the glue for everything else you're doing.
Yeah, we call that, what we're trying to create a sales prevention happening in the store all the time. But we have a lot of sales prevention categories that if you're not looking and you don't think about, they just erode margin.
It's really important for retailers to walk around their sales floor with objective eyes, pad of paper and a pen, and write down all the things that would bug them if they were a customer. I mean, I can't begin to tell you, in all of the furniture stores that we visited across the country, a lot of them have dark corners and dark spots, and you're not going to sell anything there.
Or a product from the store that has a missing drawer or hardware, or there's something wrong with it and it has no business being on your floor. That is a disgusting thing to see for the customer when something isn't presented in its best, much less dust.
Oh boy. And I will just say this from personal experience, and everybody knows the name because he's also been named our Trailblazer of the Year in our Retailer of the Year awards. But Irv Blumkin Nebraska Furniture Mart. You know, he's one of the most brilliant merchandising minds on the planet. That man walks the floor with the merchandising team an hour before they open every day he can.
Every day.
Every day. So what does that tell you? Hey, a couple of quick things here that you hit. And Rich, since you talked about the whole visual aspect of it, which the only reason I don't have reading glasses on is because I have a reading contact, but that's for another day. But let's talk really quick about this. This is some great questions that came in. So what's the most effective way to show furniture information and or prices in this spectacular wow me at the entrance, so that doesn't necessarily overwhelm or take away from what you're trying to do? Who wants to jump in on that one first?
Yeah, there's horrible price tags that are hanging off things and making them look tacky in your front setting. It's disgusting. I mean, we think that big price tag when you walk in is the most dominant thing that needs to be seen, and it doesn't need to be the most dominant thing seen on your front settings.
I think it depends on what your story is. I think if you're a value-centric company, yes, you want to scream how great this awesome looking group is and look at this amazing price. And so depending on what I put at the front door, that may be the thing we want to scream. But like, for example, right now I have an amazing sectional. It is a dupe for Restoration Hardware's Cloud Sectional, and it's probably one of the best things I've seen Ashley produce maybe ever. And it is literally right at the front door. So sometimes when you have things at the front door, I do feel like it does get missed for whatever reason. But for whatever reason, this one's capturing everybody. But if I took every piece of this modular sectional and I did put it on a big price tag, it might just make people turn and go the other direction. So we made a conscious choice with that particular vignette to go with what we call a component tag. So it's a small tag. It's like a quarter of a sheet of 8x11. It hangs on one right side arm, and it has each individual piece listed with each individual price.
Exactly.
So it can be made into whatever size we want it to be, but we want the first impression for this group to be all inspiration, right? And so we want them to fall in love with it, and then we'll add up the pieces for you.
Sure.
So I think you just have to think about what's the story you're trying to say.
You got to give the sales team something to do. So
right.
they can talk about it. Georgianne, you were going to say something, I believe, about this whole concept of the information and pricing, et cetera.
When you're talking about information, do you mean where I line up all the couches and I line up all the chairs? And...
No, I'm saying information, not formation. They're basically saying anything dealing with product, you know.
The information has to be there. It has to be available for the customer who wants to shop on their own. It has to be large enough for them to be able to read it. So Rich alluded to us wearing reading glasses, which means the font that you use, it's most comfortable for people to be able to read without their reading glasses, is a 30 font. Now, I don't know if you can use that for your whole thing. That's why you have salespeople that can come over and help. But people want to be able to look, find the information themselves, read the tags, sit on the sofa, have all the information there. So maybe there are ways to make tags look presentable. They can be, they can be part of your shtick, part of your brand, but people need to be able to find that information.
Now, George is going to want to slug me. She is going to want to slug me, but I have been on a high rise on this. RF tags that you can take your phone and put it and watch and hear somebody talk.
Okay. Those are QR codes.
Yeah, QR codes. I mean,
they're really good. Just, I know you love them and you could talk for an hour and a half on them. So yeah, they're good.
I could, but wow. They really, really work. I'm telling you guys, they work.
To get them started on QR codes, stop them now, because you'll be here till Thursday.
Okay. Connie,
one of the best retailers, I think, in around the country is Furniture Connection in Clarksville, Tennessee. We renovated and did a new store for them, and their merchandising team stepped up and did a wonderful sign that sits on the table for each and every group, each and every collection, everything that's there, and completely removed the tacky tags on everything. And if it's a value, you're going to see it. But the point is, they took attention off of the price tag and gave them the information about this beautiful sign. It was a wood frame set on it was fabulous.
Okay,
Tell
And
a story.
between,
So,
I'm
thank
gonna agree with that. Yeah, you know what? And you're right. Way better than tags. There's a
Yeah.
furniture store here, an independent store, and they'll have the Steinhoffels. They'll have the grouping, and they have this sign that anybody can read in a plexiglass holder, and it sits on the coffee table or it sits on a stand.
yes,
Perfect.
but you can pick up the sign at Furniture Connection. If you've got glasses or reading, just to your point, Rich, you pick up the sign and you easily read what the prices are, but it's so attractive and does not take away from the
can I
product.
put
Oh,
this?
the
Can I put
QR,
this in
the
terms- I wanna
QR
put-
code is, the QR code is not a listing of, features, advantage, and benefit. It's someone in the store speaking to the customer about what this is and why it's cool.
Sure.
That's
Rich,
where it gets lost.
I'm calling you Mr. QR code now. I'm going to use your own vernacular back at you guys. I'm going to use your own vernacular back at you guys. You're talking about turning the information card or price into an accessory. That's what you're saying. Make it like an accessory, right?
They did a nice wood frame around it. They didn't treat it like in just a piece of plexiglass. It was nicely done, classy.
Okay.
The entire store feels so different. They did it in the bedroom, they did it in the dining room, and you walk in. When I said do something different, that's what they did.
That's
And it
really-
wasn't my prompting, that was theirs, and I was so proud of them.
I've learned a valuable lesson here. The valuable lesson is if I want to fire up a group of designers in a conversation about store merchandising, bring up price tags, because holy smokes, man, we have just, woo, I'm and Rich and Georgianne, I'm sort of glad you guys are in different locations. I'm just going to leave that there. Hey, Kim, a quick question. Kim, a quick question came in.
Squeezing.
Kim, a quick question here because we're almost done, but a quick question came in following up on your comment about scent. What about music?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So yeah, so we're very passionate about music too. We our owner actually prefers the volume to be up a little bit louder than what probably most people are comfortable with. And I think it's actually brilliant because whether you have a small store or a large store, just that coming in moment, I almost feel like, especially, even when I'm shopping, I feel like sometimes if I'm especially shopping for something that's more of an investment like furniture, I feel like they can hear me think. And I don't know, there's something that's just disarming with a little bit louder music, gives us a little bit more energy. Even if you don't have a ton of customers, it feels like something's going on. So I think the music is really important. It's very hard though to have music that appeals to all people. I think even within your work, even within your store staff, you're going to have a little bit of dissension sometimes on your selections. But I think it's incredibly important. We get our music through a company called Wonder Signs. That's who we use, and we've been very, very happy with them. You can specify, really kind of what you want, just like not too unlike some of the other more personal use playlist type services. But for us, it works really, really well.
I have a really great customer in Knoxville, Tennessee, Brown Squirrel. And Renee Matthews, the wife of Preston, if you know them, they're just amazing people. And I've renovated their stores on several projects. But Renee, on her own, decided that their music, and they pipe it out into the parking lot, that the music in the morning would be different than the music in the evening, in the afternoon. And the evening would be a different music because it's 3 different customers typically shopping. The older customers shopped in the morning. And then the mothers, the young people maybe shopped at night. And so she has 3 different musics going on all day, 3 different styles all day, every day.
Yeah.
Okay, we got just a couple of seconds. So real quick, Rich, Georgia.
Here's the thing. Music makes people stay longer and spend more money. Rich and I always say disco is the sound of money. You don't have to play disco, but it's that beat. 100 beats.
You know why? You know
Easter-
why? It's
Okay.
exactly 2 times the beat of a heartbeat. And when you play that tempo, people walk in, you see them start nodding their head. And it energizes people. I'm telling you, it energizes an 80-year-old person and it'll energize a young person. It gets them all. Now, I know I sound crazy, but try it out. You'll be amazed. You'll be
Here's the thing about
amazed.
music, though. Here's the thing about music. You have to play it legally. So if you're not using a company like Kim just mentioned, or Retail Radio or Muzak or one of those, and you're playing music off of CDs, or you're playing music off of a radio, ASCAP, which is the company that polices that, could come in and fine you, and the fines are hefty.
And with the companies, you can get fine selections of really great disco beat music. And I tell you, it keeps you up and awake. It doesn't put you to sleep.
All right, I have to stop us. I hate to do that, but I have to because we're up on time. And thank you, Rich, for telling us that you're a QR code and a disco fan. Interesting mix. I want to thank Rich Kaiser and Georgianne Bender from Kaiser Bender. You guys have been great. Thank you for joining us. Connie Post, as always, enjoyed having you here, and Kim Cornish. We thank you all. Huge takeaways here. I highly recommend for everybody watching this, please suggest that they go to the myhfa.org/webinars to really get a chance to listen again to this particular webinar. It's been fantastic. And I want to also remind you, please sign up, because on March the 10th, I'll be having a great conversation with Farouk Kathwari, the CEO of Ethan Allen, for some great insights there. But Connie, Rich, Georgianne, Kim, a wild ride. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And for all of you out there, we always wish, of course, your good health and good sales for all of us here at HFA. I'm Mark Schumacher. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.